Once in a while, guys, a story comes out of this war that is so preposterous, it's almost unbelievable. And in this case, it's also pretty awesome. This is 9 Ukrainian Marines who, well, you know what? We're just going to break it down. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's do it. All right, so this is an absolutely preposterous story. And if there wasn't drone footage, I would just assume the Ukrainians made it up. Right? This has happened in Kursk, right? So literally in Russia itself, where a group of Ukrainian Marines ended up trapped behind a building. These were Marines from the 36th Brigade. And we know that Russia has been starting to pivot its priorities, really looking to retake the Kursk region. And so as part of that, a group of Ukrainian Marines from the 36th Marine Brigade were stuck behind enemy lines, right? They were actually trapped in a building surrounded by Russians. And without any other way to fight their way out, they made a tough call, right? They decided to call artillery into their own position, right? They said, we're not going to be taken captive. We know what the Russians do to their captives. And we know, frankly, a lot of, especially in Kursk itself, there's been increasing reports of Russian soldiers killing Ukrainians who surrender in lieu of taking them as POWs, as required by the law of war. In fact, the most notorious is actually Russian Marines from the 155th Naval Infantry Brigade. And so these Ukrainians said, we're not going to give them the pleasure of executing us effectively. And so they called artillery onto their own position, which itself is already a Medal of Honor in the U.S. There have been medals of honor awarded for that exact act, right? But before we get to the even more preposterous ending, I wanted to mention that if you're interested in taking a look at some of the other combat footage, including the drone footage from this one, I can't show you the actual drone footage. YouTube will absolutely demonetize my content. But I drop that every single Tuesday and Thursday on combatvetnews.com. This is where you can both support my channel and get access to those uncensored combat footage, the GoPros, the drone footage, stuff I can't show you. So it drops twice a week. If you can support the channel, man, it makes a huge difference. You guys know I'm independent. I get very few sponsors that want to be involved because I cover war content. So I depend on you guys. And again, if you want, the link is in the description. And of course, a huge thank you to everybody that is already a member. So the ending. You guys are here for the ending. How's it end? Actually, they get a happy ending. That crowd of Russians gets absolutely smoked, and the Ukrainians actually walk right out. Not only that, but on their way out, they pick up a bunch of their wounded comrades, bringing all of them back to Ukrainian lines, which is absolutely insane. That is an insane outcome. Now, the mechanics of why this happened, I think, are worth talking about. And, mechanically, what often happens, you have one big advantage, right? If you're in a building and your enemy isn't, you have cover, you have concealment, and importantly, in this case, a lot of buildings in these regions have like root cellars or other areas where these troops can go for safety. Now, obviously, a direct hit is a direct hit. There's not a lot you can do, and that's why these artillery missions feel like one-way missions. And again, you feel awful for even like the artillery crew getting an order like this. But knowing what's happening can provide a tremendous advantage. And in that case, it seems like these Marines had the advantage of knowing the artillery was coming right onto them. And the Russians actually probably had a level of confidence that the Ukrainians were not going to call artillery that close to them, right? So, to themselves. Now, one of the things that's also interesting is that if you follow Civdiv, he actually has video from about 2 years ago of a similar instance where the Ukrainian Foreign Legion was outside the building, had surrounded a Russian Spetsnaz group, and had killed the Spetsnaz with grenades, but shortly thereafter, artillery began to fall directly on the building. And that, in all likelihood, is a function of the fact that the Spetsnaz troops did the same thing that these Ukrainian Marines did. They knew they were surrounded. They decided to send one final Hail Mary and call an artillery mission on their own position. So this is really some just one of those things, man, where, you know, in a war of this scale, you see some unbelievable stuff, you see some horrible stuff, and once in a while you see some truly amazing, heroic stuff. And, you know, I think it's important, especially given the amount of you know, there's no good news in a war, but once in a while, you just got to take a sec and acknowledge heroism when it happens. And this is one of those instances. Hit that subscribe button. Thanks to all our Colonel tier members like James Gerling, Steve Moran, Doug Beck, Alan Knutson, Bastian Himmerling, Brian Kelly, Dale McCombs, James Nola, Henry Roussier, as well as all of our Lieutenant tier members. Couldn't do it without you guys. Appreciate you so much. See you in the next one. Cheers.